I remember the first time I saw him. The chamber of the Galactic Council was a cathedral of light. Columns of molten glass rising into infinity, banners of living plasma fluttering above each delegation. 47 species gathered beneath that sanctum, our banners shimmering with centuries of conquest. The air itself trembled with psionic pressure, with pride, with fear disguised as order, and there, at the very heart of it all, sat him. A human. No armor, no symbols, no entourage. He wore only a simple black suit, cloth of all things, and a small pin that bore no meaning to anyone but his kind. He sat with his hands folded loosely, eyes half closed as if bored by the weight of history pressing around him. We, the Cathari Dominion, had seen diplomats before, posturing weaklings, trembling before our empire's gaze. But this one, no, he was different. When the Vroth emissary spat a challenge, the human didn't even look up. When the Vroth's claws struck the marble beside him, the human's expression didn't change. Not a blink. Not a breath out of rhythm. It was as if violence had already been calculated and found unnecessary. The chamber grew restless. Whispers rippled through the air, translated in 100 dialects. Is he their leader? No insignia. Perhaps a decoy. Perhaps a weapon. I watched his reflection in the polished floor, steady, centered, absolute. For reasons I couldn't name, I felt my spines rise. The council convened to accuse humanity of subversion, spreading influence, unifying minor worlds, reshaping economies through quiet cunning. To us, they were parasites with patience. And yet this man, this nothing, stood to represent them. He spoke only once. The accusation is noted, he said. The answer is simple. We don't conquer. We endure. The room erupted. Laughter, outrage, disbelief. The Vroth roared about hypocrisy. The Zelkin hissed about human arrogance. But the human remained still, unmoving amid chaos. And then, it happened. The lights flickered. Every psionic dampener in the chamber shuddered. I felt it in my bones, a shift in gravity so subtle it was almost a whisper. My lungs froze. The chamber's air thickened, as though reality itself held its breath. The great sigil of the council above us, a crystal star forged from collapsed suns, dimmed, one ray at a time. No one moved. No one spoke. The human's gaze lifted. For the first time, his eyes met ours. I expected warmth or anger or even mockery. Instead, there was nothing. Not the emptiness of ignorance, but the silence of someone who had already seen the end of every path and found them all the same. I saw myself reflected in that stillness, small, fragile, irrelevant. When he rose, no weapon followed. Yet every guard in the room took a step back. Fear, he said quietly, isn't power. It's a leash. And you've been pulling it so long you've forgotten who holds the other end. My hearts pounded against my shell. Around me, even the psionics faltered. I sensed their confusion. They couldn't feel him. No aura, no presence. He was a void in the current, a hole in perception. And then, just as suddenly, the lights returned. Gravity normalized. The council's systems reported no anomalies. But the silence that followed was suffocating. The human inclined his head just slightly, as though the entire event had been beneath his notice. Then he turned and walked out, unhurried, unguarded, untouched. I exhaled only when he was gone. Later, our instruments confirmed it. No weapon signatures, no psychic emission, no field distortion. By all definitions of power, he was harmless, and yet, when his ship docked with the human expeditionary fleet, their admiral bowed to him, a bow, the kind reserved for those who command not by title, but by legend. That was when we began to understand. Humans have ranks, yes, soldiers, leaders, diplomats, but then they have these, the ones even they whisper about, the ones who can end wars simply by entering a room and deciding not to. Our archives classify them as non-combatants. Our instincts say otherwise, because whatever that human was, he didn't need to fight us. He had already measured us, weighed us, and found the effort. Unnecessary. We, the masters of domination, saw for the first time what true dominance looked like. It wasn't violence. It was the calm of someone who could destroy and chooses not to, and as I replay that moment in my mind, I can't shake one thought. If that was the man they sent. What kind of beings do they keep waiting? The next cycle, I was assigned to observe the human colonies more closely. I thought I was studying them, but the longer I stayed, the more I began to suspect they were studying us. I thought I understood them after that day in the council chamber. I thought the silence of their envoy was their greatest weapon. I was wrong. Silence, I learned, is only the surface of humanity's storms. Beneath it, wars never end. They simply change shape. When the Dominion assigned me to Earth as an observer, I expected a world trembling beneath its past defeats. Instead, I found cities that sang in color. Streets alive with laughter, skyships gliding through dawnlight like memories refusing to fade. Children ran between towers of glass, unafraid of the strangers who watched them. They waved at me, an alien in their midst, as though I were simply another story to be welcomed. But when I looked closer, I saw the fractures. Tiny, invisible, and everywhere, their smiles were genuine, yes, but their eyes carried distance. Every conversation shimmered with ghosts. They spoke of wars as if they were weather, inevitable and survivable. We rebuild, one of them told me. That's what we do. I remember an evening in the city of New Kyoto. A woman, a teacher, invited me to a gathering of her students. They drank fermented liquids, played music that resonated deep within my chest cavities, and laughed until tears glimmered in their eyes. Later, when the music dimmed, I asked her, "Why do you celebrate so often? Even when your world still carries the scars of so many wars?" She smiled. "Because if we stop laughing," she said softly, "the memories win." That night I understood. They were not healed. They simply refused to stay broken. Every human I met carried ghosts that whispered between heartbeats. Decisions made. Battles survived. Names they no longer spoke aloud. Some had lost entire planets, others entire generations, and yet they carried on, not because they had forgotten, but because they refused to surrender to memory. They fought wars of endurance, invisible ones, against despair, guilt, and time itself. Once, during a planetary storm, I took shelter in a human memorial garden. There were no statues of heroes, no triumphal hymns, only names. So many names. The rain struck the plaques like a million heartbeats. A young human soldier stood there, soaked, unmoving. When I approached, he said without turning, "Every name here died so someone else could live long enough to make better mistakes." Better mistakes, not perfection, not redemption, just progress. Their morality is not built on victory. It is built on the refusal to stop trying. And then there is their laughter. Gods, their laughter. It echoes even in tragedy. They laugh at pain, at fear, at the universe itself. It is not ignorance. It is defiance, the sound of a species daring existence to break them again. Once, I witnessed a human engineer working on a reactor that had nearly killed her team. She stared into the radiation-scarred core and muttered, "You almost got me." Then she laughed, a quiet, trembling sound, and kept working. To them, survival isn't an act. It's a habit. We Cathari believe strength is dominance, unity through hierarchy. Humans believe strength is carrying your scars without letting them define you. I began to see their empathy differently. It wasn't softness. It was rebellion. To offer kindness in a universe that had given them every reason to hate, that was their true violence. And I realized something else. When they looked at us, our fleets, our empires, our gods, there was no fear. Only quiet calculation, assessment, as though they had already seen what we would do and survived it, somewhere in their past. They called it experience. I called it madness wrapped in grace. Because how does one fight a species that has already fought itself to the edge of extinction and learned compassion there? As my report neared completion, I found myself writing words no Cathari had ever dared to write before. Humanity's peace is not surrender. It is a weapon sharpened by memory, and when I sent that report home, I realized my claws were trembling. Because deep within my chest, where fear once lived, something colder had taken root. The knowledge that every human smile hides a war they've already won. Weeks later, the council struck again. Embargoes, blockades, silence. They thought they could starve humanity into obedience. But as I watched the stars over Earth flicker one by one, a quiet voice in my mind whispered the same question over and over. What happens when a species that never stops rebuilding finally decides it's time to stop enduring? And start answering? We thought we had finally done it. After centuries of human persistence, their endless diplomacy, their unbearable resilience, the Galactic Council delivered the final blow. The sanctions were absolute. No ships, no communication, no trade, not even light through the jump relays. The isolation grid sealed their system like a tomb of glass. The decree echoed across the cosmos. Earth is to be contained. And for a while, it worked. Their outposts dimmed. Their colonies fell silent. The blue beacon of Sol vanished from our nav maps, swallowed by the black. We believed it was over, that the species that had defied empires would finally break under the weight of stillness. But humans do not break in silence. They forge, years turned into decades. Then, one night, our border sensors near Tau Centauri began to flicker. Faint readings, distortions in subspace, rhythmic, almost intentional. Our analysts dismissed it as static, but I knew that rhythm. A pulse, a heartbeat. When the first human vessel emerged from the dark, we didn't recognize it. It bore no flag, no registry, no visible engines. Its hull was black glass, seamless, alive with faint threads of blue light. It didn't move through space. It bent it, as though reality had forgotten how to resist. The Dominion fleet surrounded it immediately. 27 ships, each armed with enough firepower to split moons. The human craft did not respond to hails. It merely rotated until its forward hull faced the flagship. Then a voice cut through every encrypted channel at once. Calm. Precise. Unmistakably human. 3. We froze. 2. The Dominion Admiral ordered all weapons to charge. Our readings spiked. Plasma reactors ready to fire. 1. And then... nothing. No explosion. No light, no sound. Just silence. Our ships drifted. Engines dead. Weapons offline. Shields inert. Every system that ran on quantum computation had simply stopped. Not destroyed, not erased, just paused, as if waiting for permission to exist again. We floated helplessly, watching the human vessel turn away. Before it disappeared, the same voice spoke one last time, quieter, almost gentle. We have learned enough from you. You have nothing left to teach us. The transmission ended. Our ships remained paralyzed for 6 full minutes before systems flickered back online. Every core diagnostic reported the same impossible result. No damage detected. That was the first sighting in 50 years. The second came weeks later, when entire jump corridors near Proxima folded out of sync, realigned, remapped, optimized. Human vessels slipped through space like whispers. They didn't travel faster than light. They ignored it. Reports poured in across the Dominion. Human fleets appearing and vanishing at will. They weren't attacking. They were observing. Scanning worlds, listening to transmissions, leaving behind faint trails of altered reality. Wherever they went, entropy reversed. Engines ran cleaner. Power grids stabilized. Dying stars brightened. It was as if their technology wasn't built to destroy, but to restore, and that terrified us more than any weapon could, because creation, in human hands, had always followed devastation. If they were rebuilding now, it meant they were preparing for something beyond war. One of our intelligence officers intercepted a human broadcast from deep space. It wasn't encrypted. It was meant to be heard. You caged us, so we built a key. No threat, no anger. Just a statement of fact. The Council tried to re-establish contact, to apologize, to negotiate. But the relay gates no longer answered. Humanity had moved beyond the lattice of the known galaxy into places our maps could not. Name. I remember the day one of their ships appeared in orbit above. Cathar Prime! Our defense systems targeted it instantly. The ship did not respond. Instead, a message appeared across every screen, every visor, every neural relay simultaneously. This is not retaliation. This is evolution. And then, light. Not a weapon's flare, but illumination. Every city powered up at once. The dying atmosphere cleared. Our reactors stabilized. Systems that had been decaying for decades suddenly operated at peak efficiency. Then the ship left, vanishing without a trace. Our scientists couldn't explain it. The Council called it psychological warfare. But I saw the pattern emerging. A quiet reclamation of what had been lost. They weren't coming back to conquer. They were reminding us of what they had learned while we were trying to erase them. Humanity had vanished into silence and returned changed. They no longer relied on our systems, our trade, or our physics. They had rewritten their own. And as I watched the stars brighten in their wake, I understood the truth we had refused to face. We thought we had caged them. Instead, we had given them time, and humans do terrifying things with time. I sent my report to the Council that night. I warned them. The humans had not declared war. They had declared irrelevance. But the Council did not listen. They still believed in control, in dominance, in the permanence of empire. However, had seen the human ships parting light. And I could not forget the way it illuminated our world, not as a threat, but as a question. What do you do when the ones you exiled decide to come back better? Because I think the humans already know the answer. There is a word in my language, jetar, meaning to remember until it kills you. For us, remembrance is sacred. Every loss must be mourned, every defeat etched into our bones, every fallen world spoken of in prayer until our final breath. Humans do not share this ritual. They remember, yes, but not to preserve, to transform. I learned this the day I set foot on Eos 9, a once thriving colony reduced to molten glass after the last Dominion siege. I expected a wasteland, silent and abandoned. Instead, I found construction, towers rising from ash, machines rebuilding oceans, humans walking through the blackened soil as if it were merely inconvenient terrain. I could still smell the carbonized remnants of cities when I met her. A human engineer named Lyra Tran. Her face was streaked with soot, her hair tied back with a strip of burned cloth, her eyes alive with purpose. Around her, the air hummed with drones assembling habitats from recycled wreckage. "You rebuild so soon after losing everything," I said, astonished. "Don't you need time to grieve?" She looked up from her work, the faint light of the drones casting shifting patterns across her face. "We already did," she said simply, "while we planned this." Later, I followed her to the edge of what had been Eos City. The horizon still shimmered with heat from glassed soil. I asked her the question that haunted me most. "How can you stand on the ruins of your homeworld without breaking?" She smiled, not sadly, not proudly, just honestly. Because the ruins aren't where we live anymore. There was no bitterness in her tone, no hunger for revenge. Only forward motion, as if grief were not a chain, but a fuel source. That night, as I watched them from orbit, I realized something terrifying. Empires fall because they are tethered to what they have built. We anchor our power in monuments, laws, and histories. Humans, they carry nothing they can't rebuild. Their home is not a planet. It's an idea. I have seen them lose entire worlds, swallowed by war, by fire, by vacuum, and return stronger. Not because they forget, but because they refuse to let loss define the next attempt. One of their philosophers once wrote, "The past is heavy. Travel light." I did not understand until I watched them leave the graves of billions behind without looking back, stepping into the stars as if the universe itself were another workshop awaiting their touch. Among all the species I've encountered, only humans can mourn and smile in the same breath. It is unsettling. It is unnatural. It is why they win. Because while we fight for what was, they fight for what will be. Their grief is brief, but it burns like a forge, shaping something new before the ashes cool. When I reported this to my superiors, they called it emotional instability. They could not see what I did, that humans had mastered the art of severing the past. Not denial, liberation. I remember the final image of Eos Nime as I departed. The ground still smoldered with memories of annihilation. Yet above the ruins, great mirrors bloomed in orbit, capturing light to restore what had been lost. Humans walking below did not look up. They didn't need to. They already knew what they were building. Perhaps that is their secret. Not endurance, not defiance, but a terrifying simplicity. When they fall, they rise. When they lose, they learn. When they mourn, they move. And in doing so, they leave the rest of us behind. Days later, a Dominion listening post intercepted a human transmission. Short, encoded, impossible to trace. It contained only 3 words, spoken in the same calm tone I had heard once before in the council chamber. Whisper protocol active. The message was followed by silence. And across the frontier, our fleets began to vanish from sensors, one by one. They call it whisper protocol. Among human intelligence circles, it isn't spoken of, only implied. A legend, a ghost story whispered through encrypted frequencies, half believed even by those who fear it most. I had heard the rumors for years, that when a human operative goes dark, their fleets do not search, their commanders do not panic. They simply wait, because silence from a human is not absence, it is preparation. I did not believe this until I saw it happen. It began quietly. A science vessel, the HSS Seraph, crossing the neutral corridor near our border stations. A small ship, civilian registry, non-combatant. Its transponder blinked once, then vanished from every sensor array. The Dominion command dismissed it as an accident. I remember the laughter in the tactical chamber. Every human channel went dark, not in panic but in synchronization. Their fleets began to move, quietly. No calls for rescue, no mobilization orders. Entire task forces altered course, converging around the region where the Seraph had disappeared. They did not attack. They evacuated. 6 Dominion fleets, nearly half our outer defense line, were recalled, systems sealed, communication cut. Even our admirals were confused. "They're preparing for something," one murmured. But what? The answer came at dawn. The void above the Cathari outpost rippled like water. A single human vessel emerged. Small, angular, its surface fractured by strange patterns of blue light. The registry was unmistakable. HSS Seraph, it should have been debris. Instead, it was reborn. Our defense network locked on immediately. I remember my claws trembling over the console. There was no energy reading, no reactor signature, no detectable life signs aboard. Just a single transmission. One voice, male, calm, devoid of emotion. "This sector is compromised." Resetting the board. Before anyone could respond, every Dominion system in a 100 light-year radius fell silent. Power grids dimmed. Communication died. Engines froze mid-burn. From orbit, our ships looked like corpses adrift in black water. No explosions. No damage, just nothing. And then, as quickly as it began, the systems reawakened, precisely 60 minutes later. Every log, every record, every targeting matrix had been erased. Not corrupted. Erased. It was as if the last hour had never existed. When the Dominion demanded an explanation, the humans sent none. They didn't even acknowledge the incident. It was as though they hadn't noticed. But those of us who watched knew better. Whisper protocol had been real all along, a doctrine of absolute trust. When one of them goes silent, no one calls for help. Because help is already on its way, carried in the form of contingency plans written long before the silence ever fell. They don't mourn their missing. They expect their return. Weeks later, I met a captured human operative. He sat in our interrogation chamber, hands bound, heartbeat steady. We demanded to know what whisper protocol meant. He only smiled. "You're still trying to understand it," he said. "That's why it works." Then he looked directly at me, eyes calm, almost kind. "It's not about the one who goes silent," he said. "It's about the ones who listen." Moments later, our facility went dark. When the lights returned, the human was gone. Every terminal displayed the same phrase, "Reset complete." Our superiors dismissed it as sabotage, but I knew better. I had felt the weight of that silence. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't rage. It was precision. An understanding of fear so deep they didn't need to threaten us anymore. Because humans have learned something we still can't grasp. Power is not what you use. It's what everyone knows you could use if you ever stopped holding back. Whisper Protocol isn't a weapon. It's a reminder that among humans, silence is not surrender. It is the moment before history changes direction. And as I record this report, the relay lights flicker once again. One of our satellites near the border has gone dark. No explosion, no distress beacon, just silence. I know what comes next. I've begun the evacuation protocols myself. My superiors call it cowardice, but I've seen what follows when a human goes quiet. They never shout. They never warn, they simply return. And when they do, the galaxy learns something new about fear. For centuries, we believed they were gone, scattered to the dark, broken by exile, reduced to myth. The humans had vanished beyond the rim, and the galaxy exhaled. Peace, we called it. A silence without their shadow. But then, one dawnless cycle, that silence ended. It began as a hum through the void, a harmonic resonance that rippled across subspace, threading through every relay, every star. Instruments failed to interpret it. Languages could not translate it. Yet every species felt it, deep in the marrow of their being. A pulse. Slow. Steady. Human. They had returned. I was among the chosen delegates aboard the Galactic Council's flagship, orbiting what had once been the Sol system. We expected a world of ash, a graveyard swallowed by entropy. Instead, as we emerged from warp, light blinded us. Sol was alive again, not reborn, but reconstructed. Its energy pulsed in perfect rhythm, held within a lattice of containment fields and Dyson arcs, an artificial star rebuilt by human hands. Planets rotated with impossible precision, encased in glimmering halos of living architecture. The entire system was a symphony of order, each note echoing the same message. They had mastered creation itself. Their fleets emerged next, not of metal, but of light. Ships woven from refracted gravity, their hulls rippling like translucent silk. They moved without thrusters, folding through existence like thoughts changing direction. And when they aligned before us, the void itself seemed to bow. No banners, no declarations, just silence. The same silence that once heralded annihilation, now tempered into reverence. The human envoy stepped forward. She wore no armor, no crown, only a coat lined with starlight and eyes that reflected the rebuilt sun. Her presence was disarming. I had seen warlords demand obedience with fleets behind them. She commanded awe with nothing but stillness. "You once taught us that survival was the measure of power," she said. Her voice carried effortlessly, resonating through the calm arrays of every ship, every translation field. "You isolated us, starved us, made us choose between extinction and evolution. We chose the latter. Around us, the human armada shimmered, not as threat, but as testament. Cities hung suspended in the void, their spires alive with light, populated by beings of flesh and code working as one. I realized with dawning terror that humanity hadn't just survived. They had merged with their creations. Their machines no longer served them. They were them. The Dominion's High Chancellor tried to speak, to remind the Council of its laws. His voice broke midway, choked by something even his implants couldn't suppress: awe. "We didn't come back to rule," the human leader continued. "We came back to remind you, survival is not power. Creation is." Her words echoed like gravity wells, pulling everything toward a singular truth we'd long denied. Empires rise by domination. Humans had risen by design. Their fleets didn't aim their weapons. Their cities didn't conquer worlds. Instead, they offered technology, renewal, equilibrium. They had found a way to balance chaos and order without submission. Their message wasn't peace through control. It was peace through understanding what it costs to destroy. I saw entire empires kneel that day, not because they were forced, but because something inside them recognized the futility of resisting what they could never match. A Tarkin general beside me whispered, They've become gods, but the human turned toward him, smiling faintly. No, she said. We've just stopped trying to be monsters. And with that, the Great Council, the same that had exiled their species, stood in silence as humans reignited the void with living suns. In the reflection of their star, I saw what they had truly become. Not conquerors, not saviors, but architects of balance. The galaxy would never be the same again. We once feared their weapons. Now we feared their mercy. Later, when I stood beneath the artificial soul, I noticed something they hadn't said. The light was flawless, too flawless. It did not flicker, did not breathe. And in that perfection, I realized the truth. Humanity had indeed stopped running. But from what, none of us yet understood. The hum still echoes in the void. It grows louder each day, I think. It's calling something back. They still whisper his name. Even now, in an age where humans sculpt galaxies and command the fabric of reality, his memory lingers, a shadow cast across every star they've ever touched. We have names for their fleets, their cities, their suns reborn from extinction. But for him, we have only silence. It began with a rumor, then a pattern. Wherever war brews, a border dispute, a rebellion, a diplomatic fracture, a human appears. Never the same face, yet always the same presence. Calm, unarmed, eyes like gravity wells, deep, patient, mercilessly aware. He walks into battlefields where even gods refuse to tread, and when he leaves, peace follows. Or the end of everything that refused it. The Dominion archives list him as Ambassador Elias Corran, presumed dead 9 centuries ago. The Council calls him a fable. The humans? They say nothing. Not denial, not admission. Just that faint, knowing half smile that makes lesser species doubt their own sanity. But I have seen him. The first time was on the Council world, centuries ago. The quiet man who made the lights dim and gravity bow with a thought he never voiced. I was there, young, naive, recording the tremor in my hands as I realized true fear wasn't loud. It was deliberate. The second time was recent, a frontier moon on the edge of nowhere, caught in a proxy war between the Dominion remnants and a human vanguard. Both sides had gone silent, no transmissions, no survivors. I was part of the investigation fleet that followed. We found the cities intact, no casualties, just stillness. And in the center of that dead calm, a single human stood by the ruins of an abandoned outpost, watching the twin suns rise. No weapon, no insignia. His face older, yet ageless, as if time itself forgot how to move around him. I called out across the comms, demanded identification. He turned toward me slowly, eyes reflecting the twin suns like frozen fire. Conflict resolved, he said softly. No further intervention required. Then he smiled, the same quiet, infuriating calm that once made the Council tremble, and vanished. Not teleported, not cloaked, just gone. Our sensors caught no trace. Yet hours later, every Dominion weapon in that sector shut down simultaneously. No damage, just inert, like a judgment delivered and forgotten. The humans, when questioned, offered only one phrase. He goes where he's needed. No one knows what that means. Some claim he's no longer a man, that he's become part of their networked consciousness, an echo encoded in every human machine and mind. Others say he walks among them still, flesh and blood untouched by time, the last custodian of restraint in a species that could unmake creation with a thought. Whatever the truth, even the oldest empires have learned not to speak his name in arrogance, because whenever hubris returns, whenever we begin to believe humanity's compassion means complacency, the stars flicker just once, and for that single breath, every sensor, every pulse, every being that remembers him stops. In that silence, we remember what he taught us, that the deadliest human in any room is the one who doesn't need to prove it, the one who sits quietly as worlds argue over their survival, the one who waits, not for power, but for reason. Maybe he was never a man at all. Maybe he was something humanity became when they finally understood what power was for. I sometimes wonder if he still watches us, through the hum of relays, through the reflection of stars that shouldn't burn this steady, and when I dream I see his eyes again, calm, ancient, infinite. The eyes of the first human who chose peace over dominion. The eyes of the one we still fear. Lately, the relay lights along the outer rim have begun to flicker again. Minor fluctuations, the engineers claim. Nothing unusual, but I know better. Silence is never random. Not with them. Perhaps he's already there. Watching, waiting, deciding if this time the galaxy has learned, or if it needs another lesson. It has been years since anyone has seen him. Decades, perhaps. Time itself flows strangely now, bent by human technology and the quiet gravity of their works. Some claim he returned to Earth, if such a place still exists in any recognizable form. Others believe he walks the corridors of the new Dyson citadels unseen, guiding choices that determine the fate of entire galaxies. But I've come to believe something simpler. He never left. Because every time the void falls still, every time a fleet prepares for war, or a system goes dark, or the hum of communication across the stars dips into silence, I feel him. The same presence, the same waiting calm, like the breath before thunder. The humans call it the quiet interval. Those moments between great ages when expansion halts and creation holds its breath. They claim it's part of the cosmic cycle. But among the Dominion, we whisper a different name. We call it the silence between stars. It is not absence. It is vigilance. There are no wars now. No empires left to burn. The galaxy lies in uneasy equilibrium, held together not by treaties or fear, but by the lingering knowledge that someone, something, still listens. That if we step too far, if we turn cruelty into law again, the silence will return, and with it him. Humanity has transcended in every measurable way, their minds networked through light, their creations spanning dimensions we barely perceive. They no longer need armies. They don't conquer. They don't even defend. They simply exist, and the universe arranges itself around them. And yet they still speak of restraint, of holding back, of remembering the weight of the choices that made them. Their leaders, their philosophers, their machines all repeat the same doctrine: do not mistake peace for weakness. Peace is the proof of strength mastered. I stand now aboard the observation ring of the restored soul, the artificial star that hums with more life than 1,000 worlds. It burns not with fire but with thought, each photon carrying the echoes of human creation. From here, I can see the luminous cities orbiting it like living constellations, their shadows gliding over reconstructed Earth far below. A paradise, they call it. A new beginning. But I can't help wondering, what happens when they finish rebuilding? When there are no more worlds left to heal, no more wrongs to right? What does a species do when it runs out of enemies? And out of purpose? Maybe that's why he still lingers. The quiet one. The unseen diplomat. The phantom who never truly died. Not as a man, but as a memory embedded into the human soul. A reminder. A warning. That even gods must remember what it means to be human. As I dictate this final entry, I look out into the darkness beyond the light. The stars are dimmer tonight. A few have gone out entirely, not destroyed, just absent, as if something has drawn a curtain across them. The humans haven't responded. No fleets mobilize. No alarms sound, only silence. And I understand, with a chill deeper than fear, the cycle is beginning again. The silence between stars isn't an ending. It's the pause before the next choice, before another species reaches too far, before another empire forgets humility, before another war threatens the fragile balance they built. He will come then, not as a destroyer, but as a reminder. The same calm man who once sat unnoticed in a chamber of gods and monsters, the one whose stillness silenced a galaxy. Perhaps he is already among them, walking through the starlit corridors unseen. Or perhaps he is the silence itself, eternal, patient, listening. The humans have a phrase they use at the end of their transmissions. One they say even now, though they no longer need to. Stand by. I think I finally understand it. It's not an order. It's a promise. That somewhere, in the quiet between the stars, humanity still waits, not for war, not for conquest, but for the moment the galaxy forgets, so they can remind us, once more, what it means to stand in the presence of the deadliest peace ever born. And as I end this recording, I hear it again. The hum, low, infinite, everywhere. He's listening, and the stars are listening back.